All right. This is Randall Phillips, and this is the Plumber's Philosophy. Today, we have the privilege of talking to a good friend of mine who I saw recently at an event, and he reminded me that we've known each other a long time, over 20 years. That's crazy.
Well over 20.
Wow. I
Yeah, I
did
was I
not,
was
you know,
fresh out of high school when I met you.
okay. Yeah. Yeah. Hey, wait a minute. That makes it sound like I'm old. But anyway,
Oh no, you was a young. We both young men, but
I was just
you
messing
got me
with
by
you.
a couple years. That's all. That's all. You was
Okay.
lifted ahead of
So
the game. I was just getting started.
so we have the privilege of talking to Sam Clear, who is a very, I'm gonna say, distinctive entrepreneur. He has been doing this thing for a while, and one of the things that I did not know, which I want to talk about today, was that I found out recently is that you have a book. What's the name of your book, Sam Clear?
The name of my book is Power Entrepreneurships: 7 Steps to Turn Your Passion into Passive Income.
Okay, that's nice.
Thank you.
So when I heard you talk about your book, the first thing that came to my mind is, first of all, I have a book that I'm supposed to have released a long time ago. Didn't do it.
Sure.
So I'm going to definitely get with you after this to get some insights on how to get that process going. The second thing was, I said there's a lot of people, especially in this climate that we're in right now, who are working their jobs maybe that they don't like, or maybe they would like to supplement what they do, or maybe transition out of that job and start their own whatever endeavor.
Yes, sir.
Business, franchise, whatever it is. But what I find out is that a lot of people don't know how to get started, which is why it's good that we got together to share this information. So when you decided that you wanted to do the book, what was the first thing that came to your mind? Or what was there, a person or an event or something that inspired you to say, you know what, now it's time for a book? Tell us that story.
Absolutely. So I'm gonna say, just like yourself, I had been saying for years, like, man, one of these days I'm gonna write a book. One of these days I'm gonna write a book. And I just never got around to it. Busy day to day, working, taking care of the family, kids, growing up, just the same stuff we all going through and dealing with. But it was my aunt. I was going to work doing some traveling sales with insurance, because that's my, the main thing that I've done, with my entrepreneurship, life sales and retirement planning. And I was working with federal employees in Detroit. So I went up there, and I have an uncle that stays in Detroit. One of my grandfathers, he's got, some kids in a couple different places. And one of my uncles stays in Detroit. So I went up, I had lunch with him, had a great time. He's always been entrepreneurial minded. He's had businesses and, done a lot of investments and stuff like that. And I told him I wanted to take him out to lunch because I hadn't seen him in years. And when we got together, he told me that my aunt, his wife, had just written a book. And I'm like, man, that's great. I would really love to write a book one day. He's like, man, I'm gonna put you in touch with her. So when I got back in town, maybe a week later, he put me on the phone with my aunt. And I was like, he told me, my uncle told me you just wrote a book, and I just kind of want to pick your brain and see, how you were able to do that, because it's something I've been wanting to do for a long time. And then she told me that she read a book called How to Write a Book in a Weekend. I'm like, how to write a book in a weekend? That's a great title. That sounds like something, that I would probably be able to benefit from. So literally, as soon as we got done, I went and I bought the book on Kindle. So, Kindle, you buy the book, it comes right to your phone, the tablet, whatever. Right. And I read that book, I probably took 2.5 hours. Because I love reading. Like, I've been a big avid reader my whole, professional career. So one of the
Do you
things
remember
that
the artist who, I mean, not artist,
look it up right now.
author
The author
who made that book?
Let me find it for you real quick. Yeah, so it's a lady. I know that. Let me go to my Kindle. And that was a little bit over a year. I get books all the time, so I'm going to have to, look back into my history a little bit. But let's see. Give me 1 second, please.
Yeah, and for your millions and millions of fans, I just want to let all of them know that Sam Clear did not know any questions in advance. So this is totally freestyle. So that
Yes,
question,
sir.
he didn't know I was going to ask him. But while you're looking for that, if you can't find it, it's okay. We can look it up. We got the benefit of the internet.
Yeah,
So
yeah. If it was on Kindle. But you know how it is. I got so many titles in here.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
Um,
So don't worry about that. So
okay,
here's a question.
I'll
So
definitely get
that
it back to you if it's like a chat or something, or some way to type it in. We'll be able to
yeah,
put it.
yeah. I mean, one of the things that I'd say to people who are new entrepreneurs or folks who are trying to improve their business, don't be lazy. Look that stuff up. So I'm gonna say this. What's the
I found it.
what?
I found it.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry. How to write a book in a weekend. 7 insider author strategies. Find the time, choose a winning topic, and get your book done. The lady's name is Donna Kozik, Kozik.
Okay.
Write a book in a
Nice.
week. Yeah, it was a great book. It was an easy read, like I said. I feel like I read it in just a couple hours.
I got you. So here's something that I thought about with what you just said. What is it that made you say to yourself, I want to take, it sound like you said your uncle. What made you decide to take your uncle to lunch to get some insight on business? Because I don't think everybody does that. Where'd you get that from?
You know, I don't know where I got it from, but it's kind of naturally innate with me. Like I'm the kind of person, and it doesn't have to be an older person that's more advanced. Like I just always want to learn as much as I can. It's kind of how I'm built. So if I feel like something that I don't know, I need to try to figure out how to get it. And I found that one of the best ways to have people share things with you is to treat them to lunch. If I treat you to lunch, you're probably going to answer all my questions and tell me pretty much anything I want to know about you. So
I like that.
it's just something I've practiced for a long time.
Okay.
And again, I
So
hadn't seen my uncle in years, so it's like I want to catch up with my family too. So it was a win-win for me.
okay, I like that. So one of the things that reminded me of, I don't know which book that was in, but I definitely read that in a book. I know you said you mentioned off the air that you had an extensive library and you read
Yes, sir.
hundreds of books. I know what I don't know exactly what book it was, but I know in several books that I've read, they talked about the benefit of taking somebody out to lunch and just basically picking their brain.
Yes,
And
sir.
that's a really good philosophy because oftentimes there are people who have knowledge, but nobody asks them.
Mm-hmm.
Usually I find that when you have a conversation, usually a person wants to talk, like if you're
Right.
meeting at a networking group. Yeah, I'm Randall and I do this and I do that and I'm amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what I want to sell you.
That's not true,
Here's
right?
my
Yeah.
card. And you're like,
Cheating.
and I've gone to several networking events lately, and typically that's what happens. Like if you just sit there, they'll go all day
Yeah.
and they never say, well, what do you do? So
Yeah.
that's
But
just
you know
the
what
tip.
though?
Yeah.
But for you, like you're actually networking the right way when you allow them to go on and on. I don't, because I've read so much stuff. I'll say stuff and you be like, man, that's interesting. Where you get that from? The one thing I picked up in one book about that topic about networking is that to be the most effective, you need to be more interested than interesting. So people love to talk about themselves. So when you allow people to just go on and on and on, they're not going to remember anything you said because they just remember how they felt when they was talking with you. So I found that what you're doing is probably the right way to do
Okay. Yes. So after you read the book, well, the first step was taking your uncle out to lunch, which was awesome. And then the second step was he told you to do something and you did it. You didn't sound like you procrastinated. You got right to it and started the process. So what was your purpose in writing the book? Because I know you talked to your uncle, started the book process, but what were you thinking about once you had the formula of how to get the book started? What was your motivation for doing
Absolutely.
the book?
So again, I've read so many books, and this is one of the things I talk about in my book as well. Like I can clearly pinpoint when things took a turn for the better in my career as an entrepreneur, and it was when I just decided that I was going to start reading. So again, I sell insurance. There was a gentleman named Darren McKinnis. I learned so much from the guy. My first mentor. I think you know him as well. And in his office, he had a library, and it was all these, books. And before this, mind you, I had never read a book that I wasn't assigned to read before this point in my life. And it was a title that just jumped out at me. It was called The Science of Getting Rich. And I'm like, man, that's such a great title. Like, if there's a science to getting rich, I need to figure out what that is. If it's literally, you can make it a science. So I asked him, could I borrow the book? And he said, no, you cannot. And I'm like, man, you're just gonna say no? Like, we buddies, and I consider him my mentor. I've been knowing him well before I got into this. And he said the reason why was because he had lent that same book out to 4 different people. That was his 5th time buying it, and he never gets it back. So he was saying, I need to go buy my own book. And when I left that office that day, I went down the street. Back in the days when you still had bookstores, I went down the street to Borders, and I bought that book. And my sales skyrocketed from that point forward once I started applying some of those things that I learned in that book. So because I benefited from books, and I've read so many different books about a lot of different stuff, I felt the best way for me to pay it forward was to write a book myself. And because you can go read those same, hundreds of books that I read, or you can kind of, get a condensed version of all the stuff I've learned by checking out my book. So that's just how I looked at it. If I put all this stuff that I've gotten over the years in one place, it'd be really beneficial to some people moving forward. So that was my motivation.
Nice. So that reminds me of a video that I made where the gentleman who got me on the path to personal development reading, there was a tape that he wanted me to listen to, and the same thing happened. He said, yeah, you got to buy that. And I was like, kind of like you, I was like, wait a minute, you the one that introduced this to me. Like, I was confused, and then I said, okay, well, that's the process.
Right.
And I'm glad that he did make me buy it. It made me appreciate it more.
Absolutely.
So
if he'd given it to you, probably wouldn't even taken the time and listened to it and like went through it the way you would have as you made the investment. So that's all. We all got to learn those lessons early in life.
Yeah. So when you got on the road to the book, how long did it take you from the time that you started to the time that you finished it?
Well, it took a little longer than a weekend. I will be honest about that. But I wrote it pretty quick, though. I'm gonna say I wrote it in about 4 days, the first initial rough draft. And one of the ways that you can do that so quickly that you learn in that book. Of course, I recommend buying that book, to anybody that's listening to this. But I will tell the one that I use. So one of the shortcuts or hacks is to do what's called a quote book. So what you do is you start.
Say that again.
The quotes book, like you have quotes in the book. So I had a quote at the beginning of each chapter, and then I kind of expounded on that and developed it. I figured out what I wanted to say. So I wrote my table of contents first, and then I went and found quotes that kind of summed up the way that I believed about what I was going to be writing. And then I started with the quote and expanded it from there. So it made it a little bit easier. So it was an easy, here's what I want to talk about. Here's what some amazing people have said about it. Now here's what I feel about it. I'm going to expound on it. So that was a quick way to do it. But then, of course, the editing and all that stuff. Of course, you could pay somebody to edit your book, but I kind of did the whole process myself. I purchased software, to be able to edit on my own and all that stuff. So it was a process. It was a great experience to go through. And then, once I've done it, I could easily do it again. Because that's once you do something, it's easy to do it again, so if I decided to write another book, I definitely would know how to do it and probably be able to do it a little better and more efficiently too next time around.
Sounds good. So what would you say for those people who are looking to become an entrepreneur or open a small business? What would you suggest for them to do to get started based upon your experience as you're a author now? So
yes,
that's
sir.
Amazing. So we guess what that means. Now you're an expert, so we can ask you these questions. So if somebody said, hey, Sam, listen, I'm trying to, like with your uncle, I'm trying to figure out what step 1 is. What should I do to get started?
So there are literally an infinite number of things you could do as far as getting started. There literally anything can be turned into a business today, especially today. You got the internet, you have, the whole world is your market today. And there are people, who have certain interests. So you could have a niche, something that you're passionate about. You could have a skill, something that you've done already. So the first thing I would recommend is for a person to just, do a personal inventory and figure out what exactly it is that they want to do. Because when people do what they really love to do versus just, hey, what's making the most money right now. People who chasing money, usually that stuff, sometimes it works out for some people, but a lot of times you got to be passionate about what it is you're going to be doing. So the first thing I would say is figure out what it is that you love, what you're passionate about, what it is you want to do, how you want to help people, what kind of business you want to have. That's the first step. You have to know what it is that you want to do. Once you know it, you have to figure out, okay, now here's what I love. Who would pay for this? What kind of things could I do? And maybe what's some of the things that's already out there that people are spending money on that's adjacent to what it is that I love. And then once you figure out those things, then you have to figure out how you're going to market yourself, whether it be a product, because it's an infinite number of things that you can do. What's going to be a product, what's going to be a service, all those different things. So you really need to start by figuring out what kind of business you want to do. So I'll give you an example of myself. So in the insurance business, that's probably one that, a lot of people have heard about, and, it's a lot of different ways to get started in it. The person who I mentioned, recommended that he thought I'd be good at insurance. So I was working at a company called G&K Uniform Service at the time. And what I did was I found a mentor. I found somebody who was doing it, and I went and learned what I needed to learn from them. So that was my path. But, as far as what a person, what they want to do, I'll probably have to talk with them a little bit and figure out what it is, that they wanted to do before I can just say, here's, 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever it is you're going to do. Because it's going to be a little different, depending on what kind of business you want to start.
Right. So I remember when we talked, you said that you had a time period where you were working your job, punching the clock like, most people do. Mm-hmm. And there was something that made you say, you know what, I'm not going to be doing this anymore. Like, what was that catalyst for you that made that happen?
So I'm going to start a little bit before that part, if I can. Okay. So I started, like I said, I was at a company called G&K Uniform Service. I quit there to go do insurance. I did really, really good, really, really quick. But one of the, pitfalls for me with entrepreneurship was nobody called me every day and said, hey, you need to get up, you need to do this, you need to do this. So I didn't respect my freedom. Because that's the best part of entrepreneurship, in my opinion, is the freedom that comes along with it. So because of that, I ended up going back and getting another job. So I kept my insurance license going, but I ended up going to work for Candid, the electric company. While I was there, I made a few sales to some people, but, it was just a little bit here and there. But I would say it was a side hustle. So, one of the things that, because I was doing my insurance on the side, but it was really what I wanted to do. And the time that I was at ComEd, the person who was mentoring me and the people who started when I started that stuck with it, they were so much further ahead than where I was. I would say I was at ComEd for 3 years. So from 2004 to 2007, I saw people like literally change their lives. And I always had this little nagging thing in the back of my mind, like, I wonder how good I could have been had I, stuck it out and, went all in with it and, really gave it a go. So in 2007, it was scary, but I quit my job at ComEd. Everybody thought I was crazy. My mother-in-law, my friends, like, man, that's a good job. You leaving your job at ComEd? It was funny. I was out watching some football games yesterday, and somebody was talking about they trying to get their son hired on at ComEd because that's such a good job, and it is. That's the electric company, the utilities are some of the most stable jobs you can have. But when I quit my job at ComEd, like I said, I was struggling again. Like I kind of had the same issues, not respecting my time, not really like being able to, consistently, that's the word I wanted, was looking for. I wasn't able to consistently, keep things going at the rate that I wanted them to go. And it wasn't until I read that book, the book about the science of getting rich. And then that book kind of, put me on this path to where I started reading a lot of different books. I read Psycho-Cybernetics. I had I'm not sure you heard of that one before. Yeah, so Maxwell Maltz. So I literally, every book that my mentor had on this bookshelf, as soon as I finished the book, I would go see what else he had. I would go buy that book and I would go read the book. And that, like I said, that is what turned things around for me. And that was what it was able to help me start being consistent. And not only, consistent, but starting to like really excel at it. So I didn't have a tradition path. I wish I could say like, hey man, I just jumped right in and I was great. That's not how it went. And that's probably, if people being honest, that's how life works. It's up and down. Nobody kind of just shoots straight up, so I had to, take my lumps and learn the hard way, kind of how to be a successful entrepreneur.
So here's another question. So there are a lot of people who have gotten themselves kind of semi in entrepreneurship a little bit, where they're maybe doing some work from home, they're a freelancer, something like that. What do you do in order to discipline yourself to say to yourself, okay, now it's work time versus, because if you are at home and let's say that you're a person that has a hobby or has something that you enjoy, like what have you learned to do to say, okay, now it's time to stop watching the game or, whatever it is that you do for fun and say, okay, it's straight work time, especially since your office is at home, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Well, I'm gonna just keep it real with you, bro. Like remember I told you the freedom was what I love the most. Like I'm not the guy that's gonna be like, hey, you got to do from 9 to 5. You doing ABC? Like I'm like it's like jazz. Just kind of freestyle. Like that's kind of how I, do my business. And that's probably not good in the beginning. So also I will say this: in the beginning, when I was figuring things out, I did have to be more regimented. And like, hey, I'm working at this time. I'm going out. In fact, the thing that helped me most was when I hooked up with a partner that needed help. So it was a new guy. The same mentor had hired someone else, and he's like, hey, I want to put you two guys together. He's got a lot of drive. You got a lot of knowledge. Like if you two guys like partnered up, I think you guys will, be really good for each other. And it was that, me saying, okay, I committed to helping somebody else. And he really wanted to figure this thing out. So he would come and pick me up every day. And we would prospect from, whatever time. And if we weren't making sales, we were prospecting. So that's really what it was. Like, me, again, like paying it forward, like those have been like, well, I found that in life, when I help more people, in fact, I think Zig Ziglar, that's one of his main statements. Like, if you help enough people get what they want, you'll always get what you want. So for me, those and I've hired other agents over the years too. Like a lot of these plaques and stuff behind me are not just for my own sales. Like I've gotten agency awards as well for training and recruiting other people. So the times I'm most regimented is when I'm helping somebody else, like learn how to because I don't want to have any bad habits starting them. So I usually do my most my best like sticking to a schedule when I'm training a new person. But when it's not that, I'm just gonna be honest with you. I work when I'm ready to work. And that's, I'm kind of a night owl too. So like when I wrote my book, like I was writing my book from like the times when my family and stuff was sleeping. Like those are my most creative hours. So I didn't do like I'm going to, block out this time. It's just when the spirit moves me, that's how I like to operate.
Well, I was thinking that that's what you were going to say. Cause like we said to the audience, this is totally unscripted, but
yeah.
With that freestyle, I like that jazz analogy that you gave. That's pretty hot.
I thought you would.
So what is it that, okay, we know being an entrepreneur allows you to be loosey-goosey somewhat. However, bills are not loosey-goosey. So what do you do if you, right? Okay, they got schedules on that. So yes, what do you do to say to yourself, okay, not necessarily bills, because you're probably beyond that point where you're saying to yourself, I got to worry about my bills. But let's say goals, financial goals, where you say, okay, now I need to take the family vacation, or I need to buy my new car or fix the car or some kind of project. What is it that you do when you say to yourself, okay, now is the time to buckle down on that? What's that process?
I feel like that's probably one of my best strengths. So like I usually do when I decide, just like that book, when I decide I'm going to do something, like I'm like the Terminator. I'm just going to go until it's done. Like that's like, but that's just me, like that's just how I operate. Okay. And I love that. Like I love that I can just like go hard and then, go on vacation. And so one of the best things, like the title of my book is How to Turn Your Passion into Passive Income. So, one of the cheat codes, I guess is what I would say is, earning overrides. Like I got a check today from somebody who I trained years ago, making a sale that I don't even know who this person was. So that's kind of like an unfair advantage for me. But again, like me, helping those people, like I said, to get regimented and show them how to do it, is still putting money in my pocket today. You know,
I like
so
that.
the passive income aspect is the purpose of my book is, how do you automate? Because again, one of the best things about being an entrepreneur is that freedom part, right? So one of the things that I, wanted to like set out for, the people who are going to read my book is, how do you turn what you're passionate about into predictable income that you can do something for one time and repeatedly receive passive income from it? So one of the things that people could do to do something like that is writing a book, right? So if you write a book, you do that one time, and then if you create a course or something and go with the book, and you can put it in, on a platform and automate it. And, just as a disclaimer, like I haven't figured this part out yet, but that's like, that's part of my process. Like, but again, if I figured out how to do that, then that's going to give me predictable passive income as long as I can, keep it in front of enough people.
I appreciate
I'm all about that kind of stuff, right? So I'd rather train a person, another agent, or, write a book or something like that, where I don't have to, like just be so regimented all the time. And then it's like, it's kind of like a cheat code for life.
Gotcha. So a lot of people who work in corporate America talk about, they use the term work-life balance.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you know what I'm talking about when they,
Absolutely.
Okay. So what would you suggest for a person that is looking for work-life balance? Because I'm gonna give you an example. So we always talk about at the beginning of these sessions, we've done different types of videos on our YouTube channel, but this one is the plumber's philosophy. And one of the things that I've found with plumbers, which I love, the whole plumbing concept, is a lot of those guys and ladies, because ladies can do plumbing too.
Absolutely, they can. That's right.
A lot of times they don't really have a good work-life balance. And well, maybe some do, but the ones that I've experienced is very few and far between, because it's like a non-stop race for that money. And a lot of people will say, oh man, plumbing is so good. It's like, man, that's good money in that, which is true, depending on how you do it. But how do you, I guess, keep on the path of, because, well, it seems like for you that you can say to yourself, all right, it's time to do something else. Because a lot of people, when they do their work, whatever their work is as an entrepreneur, I've been running into a lot of conversations about restaurants lately.
Right.
There are people who just will grind and grind and grind, which is probably because they don't have any fun stuff to do like you. What would you say for those people? I'm just saying.
No, you're right. Absolutely. So one of the books that the cassette that you were talking about, the person recommended you go buy, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. So I'm going to get into that real quick. So you already know what I'm about to say, the ESBI, right? The cash flow quadrant. So most people who think they're entrepreneurs really are not entrepreneurs. They own a job. So if you have a restaurant and you have to be there every day, or if you're a plumber and you don't make money unless you turn in that wrench, you don't really have a business. You own the job. Like that's, if you got sick, God forbid, or if something happened and you couldn't go, flip the burgers or turn the wrench, your money would stop. So that's like the S, the small business owner. One of the things that Kiyosaki talks about, again, going back to, because that's one of the books that I've referenced heavily in my book. You're not really a business owner until you can figure out how to get passive income from it. So if I was a plumber or a restaurant owner, what I would be focusing on right now, kind of like what I was talking about in the beginning, is finding people who want to be plumbers, or somebody who's looking for a job, and I'm going to teach them everything that I know and kind of put myself into them so that I have employees who I can get more jobs from, and I'm going to focus on expanding the business. And now my job is not to turn the wrench or to flip the burger. My job is to manage the system that's going to keep money coming in. So I'll start learning marketing or sales, because those skills, as some of the most important skills to have. my job would be to expand the business, not to work in the business, not to be the person that's doing the job. Because you could always find like people are always looking for work. So if it was me, I would go to a school like there. In fact, I just signed up to participate in a career fair at a high school. So find stuff like that. Find young people who are looking for opportunities. Show them what you do, and now you have employees that you could send, to do, like the minor jobs and stuff like that. And you're going to, of course, pay them a percentage, but you're going to be making money every time they're out doing something. So I would be, if I was doing anything other than what I'm doing, that's what I'll be trying to figure out. How do I make passive income with this thing?
Nice.
And turn it into a business. You hire other people to do the work, and then you manage the business and not the day-to-day task.
Right. So here's a thing that plagues a lot of new entrepreneurs or those people who are interested in possibly starting their own business. You and I both like sales. I never asked you that question, but I already know
I
just by the
love
things
sales.
that you say. I know, me too. It's
I tell
everything
my
is
wife,
sales.
yeah, it's nobody wakes up in the morning and says I want to buy something from Sam Clear, but I love it when they do it. Like I just get it. It's like it's nothing better in the world to me.
I thought you said that I heard you say something about your wife when you first started. I was like, wow, that is a sale.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I had to sell her to stick around with me 22 years, right? And
Yeah, yeah.
to go on the
Good. And
first date and all that stuff,
congratulations on
right?
that. That's
Thank
good
you,
stuff.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
And she's
So
beautiful too, so I had to be a good salesman. I'm all right, but I definitely upgraded.
I like this stuff. This is good. So what would you say for those people? Because that when I talk to my clients and those who are interested in being a client, when they're the first thing that we talk about is their method of getting across what they do.
Mhm.
And a lot of people who aren't into sales, when they hear the word sale, they cringe. They like,
Yeah.
oh, ooh,
It's not for
that's
everybody.
bad. I know. So
Yeah.
what would you say? What is your philosophy on helping a person get past the stigma of being involved with sales?
I would say don't get past the stigma. Do what you do. Like that's me. Like I love sales. Find a guy like me. Like I was just saying, like you don't have to learn. So I'm not big on learning every little thing about every little thing. Like it's people out here who play at the stuff that's horrible, that's hard for you. So you go out and you find a guy like Sam Clear that's gonna do all your selling for you, and you pay him a percentage of all the stuff he gonna bring in. That's what I would say. Like, you don't have to become that guy. Just, find somebody like that. Like I said, there's people out here, like, young people that's looking for opportunities. Like it's all different types of people in the world. So you just need to partner up with the people who play at the stuff that's difficult for you.
I like that. That's a good idea. I, I appreciate this. This is by this being unscripted, there's all kinds of interesting things that have come out of this conversation that we've had. So I could see that. So what you're saying in so many words is to create a scenario where you have leverage. Use the
Absolutely.
leverage of somebody else's skill set, which so
That's the
what you're
American way.
yeah, what you're saying in essence is that maybe you don't need to sell.
Right.
Okay. I like that. I've never I've thought of that, but typically in a lot of things that we read, especially Robert Kiyosaki, he definitely stresses learning how to sell. But you said
That's a
use the
great skill.
leverage. Yeah, yeah. Learn to
I recommend
leverage.
it. In fact, I created a sales course. Like I believe that people should learn how to sell. That's one of the things. After I wrote my book, the next thing was okay. I need another product. So the other thing that's a natural for me is sales. So I created a course teaching people how to sell. It's a great skill. Even if you're not going to do it, you still should know about it because you don't want the salesperson. Like you need to put the systems and processes in place for whoever's going to be doing your selling for you. So even if you don't want to have to do it every day, you still need to know how to do it. Of course, I definitely agree with what you're saying. But you don't. I don't think anybody should have to do anything that they don't really love doing as far as with the business part. Because there's too many people out here like, I don't like accounting and stuff like that. You hire an accountant. Like it's people out here who play at the stuff that's not your strength, right? So you just find those people and you pay them whatever they need to be paid to do it for you.
So I appreciate that. So one of the skills that I know that you have to have, especially in the business that you're in, is follow up.
Absolutely.
So how do you, because I know we've talked about how your schedule is somewhat designed the way that you want to around your lifestyle, we'll say. But what are some of your tips and tricks that you use as far as follow up? Because I think a lot of people sink when they have something amazing because of not following up on potential. Even if you go to, for instance, networking events,
Hmm.
like you said, the event that you have coming up at the school or the fair that you're going to be at, all those things require follow up. So what do you do to make sure that follow up gets done?
Just
Because
do it.
it's not
It's
easy
no,
to
it's
do.
no, yeah, you just have to be disciplined. Like I said, I'm not going to sit here and tell you I follow up every day, every time with the people like right away. Like, but I have times where it's like, okay, now, this is the time where I'm going to set aside for, I'm just going to be calling people I need to call.
So
And
you
then
got
when
a
I
schedule
start,
for it.
yeah, so like tomorrow, I'm going to be on the phone just following up with old clients or people who fell off the books and agent people who have given me, just said they were interested in becoming agents and stuff like that. So you just have to, once you start, just, it's easy. So one of the hardest things to do is just to start. Once you start doing something, it's easier to just, keep the momentum going. So we just have to make sure that we at least like one day a week set aside time for follow up. Like today, on this day, I'm gonna be doing all my follow up stuff. And just once you make that first call, it's real easy. It's just getting that first call done. So you have to discipline yourself to just I'm just gonna make one follow up call. And then once you make one, it's like, I can make another. It wasn't that bad. And you know what it is? Like a lot of times we fear rejection. I found even people who don't like sales, it's really because of that. Like, we have a hard time with, we feel like we take it personal. But it's not, when somebody tells you no, or like, if they decide that something's not for them, it's not personal. They're just not ready at this time or something like that. Another book, like I said, I got 1,000 books for you. I read this book called Go for No.
Yeah.
One of the best books I've read. You heard that one?
Oh yeah.
This books I've ever read, and it helped me so much. And one of the concepts from that book was, whether you're a salesperson or not, maybe if you're doing follow up for, networking or something like that. Of course, a lot of times when people, if they need to follow up with something, is to pitch them or offer something, right? So maybe you just need to say, I need to get 3 no's today. And that should just be your goal. Like, I need 3 people to tell me no. And what you'll find is once you actually just, set out and start doing the stuff, more people will end up saying yes. And then it's going to just get easier for you once you just kind of force yourself to go ahead and just actually get started with the process. And I found that that's a, kind of like a little mind hack to eliminate that fear of rejection.
Nice.
No, it's not something that me is just an event. Like you have to go through no's. It's just part of life, right?
Yeah. So as we close out, what would you say? Because during this time that we've spent together, you mentioned a lot of books that you read, and I think that
Mhm.
that's really the key for people to go to the next place that they're trying to go. Because in
Absolutely.
order to go from where you are to your destination, you need a roadmap or some kind of instructions on how to get there. So, what would you say for a new entrepreneur, even a seasoned entrepreneur, if they are not really into reading and they want to start their personal development library? What
Mhm.
would be the first book that you recommend as we close out?
I gotta say, my book, of course, man. That's a trick question. Power Entrepreneurship: 7 Steps to Turn Your Passion into Passive Income. And if you hate reading, guess what? I recorded an audio book for you, just for you. So you don't even have to read it. You just hear me with this nice baritone voice, just read my own words for you. The low price of I ain't gonna do that, but
Wow.
just like if you don't like reading, buy audiobooks. I have an Audible subscription. My Audible library has I want to say like over 500 titles.
Okay.
When I'm driving in my car, I'm listening to books.
Yeah. So,
But
what
I
we're going to
actually like to
do,
read too, though. So I read books, and then when I'm not reading them, I'm listening to them because that's like one of the. So we all everybody it's nobody knows everything. Like even me, I've been doing insurance over 20 years. I don't know everything there to know about insurance, about selling, about all that stuff. But guess what? Somebody does know it, and more than likely, somebody wrote something about it. So that's just like a cheat code for life. If you really get into books, like you'll be so much further ahead because the alternative is you're gonna have to go learn from your failures. So you could take the long path, which is I'm just gonna figure it all out on my own, and just go ahead that's out here and just start doing whatever. And eventually you'll probably get it figured out, but it's going to take you way longer than if you just would have took a little time out and got yourself a book, like I said, would help me get on the right path of success. So that's the reason why I wrote the book, because I've read, like I said, I've referenced a lot of these different books in my own book. So you don't have to go read those 400 books in my Audible title, because I told you the stuff that's going to help, a beginner entrepreneur in the book that I wrote.
Nice.
So it's a cheat code for life.
So what we're going to do is we're going to, hold on. Sam Clear chokes me up. So with this interview that we're doing, we're going to actually, Sam and I, he doesn't know this, he's going to find out now, but we're going to work on putting a link in the bottom of this video so that you can get this book, because the book is amazing. Just from the things that you said so far, I think that there's so many people who could benefit from it. And what we're going to do is create a link so that those that are watching the video, we don't have it there yet, but it will be there by the time that you see this. We're going to have a way to make
click a little button, take you right to the website. It'll
boom.
It's a ebook too, so you don't have to wait for it to come in the mail. You start reading right away. You start reading it tonight. Yeah. Today, whatever time you listen to this.
I like that.
If you want to read it, like I said, I got a upsell button for you to buy the audiobook down there. So you don't even have to, if you're not a reader, just go ahead and listen to it.
Okay. And you can put in, when you look for the book, it's going to be a / Blue Silver Cafe so that you can get the affiliate link.
You got it.
To make sure that gets done, because we're partnering as we speak.
Absolutely. That's right. We talking about commission, right? So your audience, I don't know your audience, so I appreciate you, brother. You put me in front of people I never would have had a chance to talk to before. So absolutely, that affiliate link going. As soon as we figure that out, because like I said, I'm figuring this stuff out. But as soon as I figure this out, we're gonna post this video. We're gonna have that affiliate link, and it's gonna be off to the races.
Boom. And with that, this is the Flummer's Philosophy with Sam Clear and Randall Phillips. We appreciate you all tuning in, and we're going to have some more stuff to come, probably with Sam Clear, because I'm sure he has so much other stuff to share. Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. The pleasure's all mine, man. Thank you, brother. I appreciate your time.
All right.
Thank you all for listening and watching this today, too.